Our next spotlight is Upholding Human Rights, Emerging Trends and Standards in Voluntary Corporate Disclosure. Please welcome to the stage Katie Fowler, Director of Responsible Business at the Thomson Reuters Foundation.
In the midst of the online shopping boom during the pandemic in 2020, an undercover reporter for the Sunday Times exposed a disturbing story. Staff at a factory in Leicester, here in the UK, were being paid under half the minimum wage with few protections from COVID-19 to produce clothes for the fast fashion brand Boohoo. In the fallout, £1.5 billion was wiped off the brand's share price in just 2 days. But that's not the end of the story. Now, Boohoo has been hit with a lawsuit from 49 institutional investors alleging that the company made misleading statements and either failed to or delayed disclosing information about the issue. This isn't just an isolated case. It's a stark reminder of the impact businesses have on the lives of people every day. And it shows the importance of transparency around how businesses manage the people in their operations. When transparency is lacking, it is dangerous for workers and bad for business. My name is Katie Fowler, and I'm the Director of Responsible Business at the Thomson Reuters Foundation. From my experience as a former chief executive in the child rights NGO sector, and more recently in the social impact consulting world, I have seen the devastating effects of irresponsible business practices on the lives of children, families, and communities throughout the supply chain. But I also understand how transformative reliable data can be for measuring impact and identifying areas of improvement. Companies are increasingly being called on by shareholders, consumers, and legislators to consider how their operations address social and environmental issues. Unlike environmental reporting, social data on how businesses affect people is still at an early stage. But that's changing. And this is where the Workforce Disclosure Initiative, or WDI, comes in. WDI collects voluntarily disclosed data on how companies manage and engage with people in their operations and across their supply chains. It is a leading program to improve transparency and accountability on workforce issues, with 144 of the world's largest companies from 25 countries disclosing this year. These companies represent all industries and include major global corporations like Microsoft, PayPal, Rolls-Royce, and Alibaba. WDI asks companies to disclose data about issues including governance, gender, well-being, and rights. This data is then shared with a coalition of investors to inform their decision-making. The initiative was founded in 2017 by the responsible investment charity Share Action. It transferred to the Thomson Reuters Foundation earlier this year to unlock its full potential, leveraging our global network of media, legal, and sustainability professionals. This year alone, companies taking part represent 8 million workers and millions more in supply chains. This huge data set is a powerful tool for companies and investors alike to benchmark performance and identify areas of improvement. So far, WDI offers a relatively small, yet well-represented sample of corporate data. We're excited about its potential to improve transparency, protect workers' rights, and manage risk at all stages of the supply chain. This year's WDI data shows promising developments in embedding transparency into business processes. But it also reveals a more challenging environment for businesses, with variations across regions and sectors. Businesses in 2024 face pressure from all angles. As we've heard throughout the conference, generative AI and the urgent need to transition to a greener economy are reshaping our working world. Meanwhile, reporting on environmental, social, and governance criteria has become a polarized issue in some regions. In the US, ESG investing faces criticism that it's prioritizing environmental concerns and individual rights over profitability and shareholder value. In some states in the US, we've passed anti-ESG investment laws. We're also seeing the flow to ESG-themed equity funds decline across the world, indicating that markets are reassessing the value of these initiatives. On the other side of the political spectrum, companies are also under intense scrutiny to back up their claims to care for people and planet and avoid accusations of greenwashing. We see the impact of this challenging environment in our WDI data, especially as it relates to diversity and inclusion. Most companies in this year's sample provided data on their organization's measures to improve D&I, but just 40% of US companies disclosed these actions this year, a stark contrast to 2022, when all participating companies provided this information. From our engagement with companies, we think that this trend represents a context that can make it difficult for businesses to be transparent on these issues, rather than a lack of oversight on D&I itself. In fact, Deloitte reports that over 80% of executives still believe a stronger commitment to positive human impact will increase their company's profitability and appeal to customers and clients. In this climate, we need more transparency, not less. Through WDI, we aim to respond to companies' evolving needs, building a framework that supports them to both balance transparency whilst working with investors to reward it. Turning our focus now to the UK and Europe, and we're seeing some positive steps forward on workforce issues. Mandated by the UN Guiding Principles on Business and Human rights due diligence is increasingly becoming standard practice in businesses, especially in regions where there are robust regulations in place. When it comes to reporting on actions to address potential human rights issues, European-based companies lead the way. 75% of European and 85% of UK companies reported at least one action to address these issues, much higher than in other regions. Our data also shows that European companies seem to have better oversight of where their workers are located, a key metric to understanding an organisation's workforce. If we look at what's driving this trend, we're seeing an increase in regional regulations and European laws. To meet these requirements, companies are having to improve their oversight of workers and increase transparency on workforce issues. As legislation like this rolls in, voluntary initiatives like WDI will become even more important. That's why our survey goes beyond legal requirements in the questions that it asks, helping companies to get ahead. In this way, we see WDI as a framework for companies not only to comply with, but to lead responsible business practices. Of course, driving corporate transparency takes time to get right, but consistent voluntary reporting is a catalyst for change. The longer that companies disclose to WDI, the more transparent they become. Companies that participate for more than 5 years share more than 3 times as much information as first-time responders. Once a reporting mechanism is established through WDI, transparency increases over time. Although WDI is still in its early stages of international growth, we see this trend as proof of its potential. The number of countries represented is growing, and we aim to expand on this. We want to use this data to help companies understand and enhance responsible business practices and equip investors with insights to steward their portfolios. Workforce transparency is good for people and society, and it is certainly good for business. With this in mind, we're pleased to be able to share this year's WDI findings report today. The report is now available online. Please scan the code, take a look, and you can also get a hard copy from my colleagues upstairs on the first floor. I hope these insights have provided you with some context for the scrutiny that the landscape of ethical and sustainable business is under, and we will be discussing what this means for the future of responsible business in the next panel, so please stay around to hear more.